Welcome to Season 2 of Pod Practice, where Mama Bird alumni Quinn Feiner, Mikey Lund, and myself, Alex Atkins, talk about Ultimate from the perspective of players and coaches. We want to engage with you, so please reach out, say hi, ask a question, give some feedback. We look forward to talking with you. To reach out, follow us on Instagram or YouTube at podpractice_pod. Listen on Spotify at Pod Practice, or email us at show@podpracticepod.com. I hope you enjoy this episode.
All right, today we'll welcome in Ian French, author of the Better Everyday Coaching Substack and Coaching Games for her Ultimate Frisbee. That is the right title, right? Because I actually bought your book this morning. It's very good, by the way. I do like the concept in the book. The book itself, the PDF download says Games for Coaching Ultimate. But I also saw Coaching Games for Ultimate Frisbee. But I suppose they're more.
Let's not talk about how much I flip-flopped on those titles and confused myself. So as long as you get all the right words in the title, it doesn't really matter which order they come in.
I am still getting a little up to speed on all of your work, but I do want to say from what I've seen so far, it is excellent. And yeah, if you could you just give a little bit of background on your ultimate career and how you got into coaching?
Yeah, so I'm going to guess most of your listenership is American, so I'm going to try and put this in context. So I'm Irish. I'm from Dublin, Ireland. I started playing Ultimate in university, as most people in Ireland did and still do. Maybe to put it into context, I started playing in 2006, the end of 2006. I started a college term there. My first year. There was, I think, 6 college teams in Ireland at that stage, 0 club teams. The first club nationals didn't happen in Ireland until 2008. The first college nationals had only happened, I think, in 2002. Ultimate really only started in Ireland in 1995. So when I started playing, there was maybe 150 to 200 active players in the whole country. So super small community, which was nice in some ways, because I think by the end of my second year playing, I'd probably say I knew literally every player playing in Ireland, which is kind of cool. Obviously went to the same things because there wasn't that much on at the time. So yeah, super small community. I was super lucky with where I started playing Ultimate in Ireland, because I started playing Ultimate at Trinity College Dublin, and my coach that first year was Cian O'Moran, which is an Irish name that most people probably did not catch me saying. But Cian is to me anyway, the legend of Irish Ultimate. Up until the last few years, was undoubtedly Ireland's best ever player. And after, I think in 2009, he moved to London, and he ended up at Clapham, played on Clapham's O-line, coached Clapham for a number of years. Coached Clapham in 2014 when they went to Wook, and that was the year they lost to Revolver 17-16.
Finals?
In quarters, I think.
Oh, wow. What am I thinking? I'm probably thinking of 2012 Sakai, when Great Britain made finals.
Yeah, the finals, yeah. So yeah, despite small community, Cian was way ahead of his time in terms of how committed he was to the sport, how prepared he was, and how intelligent he was as a coach. Like I've always said, for the last 20 years, I've basically been chasing Cian as my role model as a coach. But I was only able to be coached by him by 1 year. But yeah, he definitely left a big mark on me. So I think if I landed anywhere else in Ireland at the time, and if I went to university somewhere else and started playing, I definitely don't think I'd be sitting here. So super fortunate in that respect. Yeah, and then the next few years, I actually played Worlds in 2008, my second year playing Ultimate. I went to Vancouver and played Worlds. Had absolutely no idea what was going on, really. Control forehand, really. Kind of had a rough campaign. I tore my PCL, MCL 4 months out of the tournament. So my first full sprint was the day before the tournament started. So as the youngest on the team, as the least experienced on the team with a dodgy knee, understandably did not actually play much, but definitely opened my eyes to like, I guess what Ultimate could be. I'd never seen it outside of, I went to one tournament in England. I'd never seen it outside of Ireland. So to see the Japanese play, to see the US play, to see Canada play, that was the Canada beat US in that final in the stadium, which I was totally, not hungover for. I totally absorbed everything that was going on, but the atmosphere was great anyway.
Sorry, you were talking about the 08 final in
08
in
final,
Vancouver.
Yeah. So it was like Sakai versus Canada, really. We actually won Spirit, but we had done a thing early in the week. Yeah, we're like one of the worst teams in the tournament. We won Spirit, yeah. It happened somewhere else. We had done a thing early in the week where we all went to thrift stores and bought an outfit for someone else in the team because we decided we were going to do that for the finals. So we won Spirit, then had to go up and collect our Spirit medals alongside the US and Canada and whoever finished third, all very serious and happy, and we're just like all looking like absolute jerks.
Photo. Yeah, that's a relic from days of old.
Yeah, I'm not sure that sort of thing still happens in the Worlds. But yeah, so after that, like I went back, I joined a very new team in Dublin. We were like the first club in Ireland to do this revolutionary thing of trying to train every week. It never happened before. We won Irish Club of the Year solely because everyone was like, wow, how do you guys figure out like actually training every week? It's like, well, sometimes we have 4 people, but we still do it. Like we just go ahead and do it. It's not that hard. Just go ahead and do it.
So humble beginnings.
Very humble beginnings. So yeah, kind of built that club up over the next 5 or 6 years. So from like 2009 to 2015, I was coaching my club team, Jab the Hook, 2 or 3 times a week. I was coaching in university, 2 or 3 times a week, coaching some national teams in between. And that was kind of my coaching apprenticeship. It's just like grinding away, doing those 5 or 6 sessions a week, pretty much year round, because we had an indoor season here. College season started as soon as, of course, the club season finishes as well. So yeah, very full on, kind of fumbling around in the dark, trying to figure out this coaching business. And
what sparked the coaching itch for you? What made you want to pursue it?
I think in the beginning, by when I joined Jab the Hook, it was a brand new team. Everyone was like first or second year of college, same as me. But I had just come back from playing for Ireland, so I just had a level of knowledge and authority that was just better than everyone else on the team. So I just fell into doing that. And I don't know if it's just like the authority I like, the power I like, but I just like thinking about the game. I just enjoy thinking about how to make the team better, like what I could do with my lines or the tactics or motivation or a combination of all that to try and just like make the team a little bit better, like game by game, year by year, session by session.
I can relate to that a lot. Did you have a coaching background or a sports background prior to Ultimate?
Not really. So like the only sport I played outside of school sports was tennis. I wasn't super better at that. I was decent at like 12 years old, and then I stopped growing. And I'm like 5'9" with a negative wingspan. It was like not ideal for tennis. When everyone starts being like 6'2" and can just batter you to submission after that. So kind of fell away from that. Then when I went to university, I tried out for the tennis team there. Didn't make it, obviously. And then Ultimate was one of the sports that was willing to accept me. So kind of just fell into it. It worked well in my routine. And just gradually over its course of a year or two, just got more and more obsessed with it.
And so when did you stumble on the games for Coaching Ultimate as a topic? Like obviously you've written a whole book on it, so you're pretty well versed in that area. When did you start, when did you stumble upon that kind of like games? When did you realize you started liking them, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it was pretty late. So I said I was figuring those first 5 or 6 years or so of the apprenticeship, and I was doing what a lot of I think new coaches do, which is just like you copy what you liked about the teams that you're on. So like I started by just copying the stuff from the Irish team that I liked, and then I'd read something on the Huddle or Sky or something, and I'd be like, cool, now we're doing that. And I just copy those drills and basically copy paste those drills and try and improve them as I did them more and more. Then kind of out of necessity, it was when I was coaching the Irish mixed team for the European Championships in 2015. So the way our national teams are structured in Ireland is we are allowed to have a training camp once a month. So I got the players together once a month, which is obviously like over the course of 8 or 9 months, there's a decent amount of time together, so we could achieve a lot. But at the same time, you're kind of limited by numbers and energy over the course of a weekend. So I coached the under 23 team, mixed team in 2013 when in Toronto. I kind of just did my traditional like drills and stuff there, and it's like, we really get out together drilling with a group of players once a month, and then they go back to their own clubs and they do something completely different for 3 weeks, and they come back to you, and you kind of have to start from scratch. So with that team, I just took a different approach. I was just like, basically, we're just going to play scrimmages. We're going to modify scrimmages to kind of focus on different areas at a time, and it was just mind blowing how much better just doing that worked. It's like kind of throwing drills in the bin. Let's be like, okay, everyone here is good. They're capable. We can, like, the most important thing is to get everyone on the same page and to kind of really embed our principles and how we're going to play together as a group of people that are all part of the same club playing together constantly.
Versus, so like when you say previously maybe you had just we're having them do the same drills that you had always done, perhaps they didn't understand the purpose behind it, or was it because you have this approach, I guess, that I don't think you've coined the term that you call constraints-led approach.
Absolutely not.
And
I'm a charlatan in constraints-led approach. Like, it's a proper academic branch of coaching, and I felt nervous even putting that in the book. Like, as someone who's actually like qualified and done the research and gone through the scientific paper, is going to come and be like, "You're totally wrong. I'm going to yell at you now about how incorrect your understanding of this."
Oh my
term.
gosh!
So
I feel
that one very
softly. Such a connection with you, I think, because I often have all the same fears. I know on your Substack you mentioned imposter syndrome in one of your I think it was why you aren't getting better as at coaching or as a coach, one of those articles. I can very much relate to that, but I do want to give you a chance and stay on point here. Can you kind of explain what the constraints-led approach is and means, and how you implement that in games?
Yeah, I'll try and do it some justice here. So essentially, what the constraints-led approach is rather than telling people like exactly what you want them to do, like, we want to swing the disc. Like, when we get the disc on the forehand sideline, we want to swing the disc over to the sideline and attack that space. So rather than just telling them that's what you want to do, and maybe trying to do like a drill where like it's starting from static and everyone's kind of knows exactly what's going on, and it's quite limited because you're only practicing one thing and everyone knows what's happening. What you're trying to do is where the constraint comes from. You're trying to change some aspect of the rules or the environment to encourage that same behavior. So if I want to get people to move the disc off that four sideline quicker and move it to the far sideline, maybe I can do something simple like say, every time the disc crosses the center line of the pitch, you get an extra point. Mm-hmm. So you throw it to one sideline, you're like, cool, I could just keep trying to squeeze down the sideline, or I know if I swing it back around the other way, we get a point out of that, and you keep doing that, and then, hey, everyone maybe understands that playing Ultimate that way is easier. So yeah, you're just trying to tweak what people, kind of like the advantages that people see in the environment of the game in order to encourage them to perform a certain behavior. Obviously the difficulty is that's really intimidating if you've always been trained through drills, because like you don't understand how that's going to work. And that's kind of why I wrote the book, because it's like, okay, I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years. I think I have somewhat of a grasp of the theory behind what I'm doing now, because I just started doing it. I hadn't heard of constraint-led approach at all like 2 years ago. I was just doing it kind of by experimentation. So yeah, I wrote the book to kind of be like, here are 25 ways I kind of manipulated the game to get a certain outcome. So if you want a starting point, here's a starting point. They're all things I've actually used with different teams over the years. So like, they work for me. They might not work for you, but they have worked for someone in the past. So yeah, I hope you just make that barrier a little bit easier. And I do a post as well. Just one of the advantages of training through this as well as like really helps the players, because rather than me telling the players I want you to do this, they have to kind of figure it out for themselves, which is, as we all know from TTI, I think if you can get people to kind of come to realization without being told it, they learn it much better. But for me as a coach as well, I only realized this really recently. I basically spent all my time thinking about how do I tweak something in a game to get a certain result. I always have to be at training and be reading what's happening during the session and be trying to understand, like, why is this not getting the result I want? Like, why are they not swinging the disc with this constraint? Like, there's obviously they're missing something or I'm missing something. And it's like, okay, this makes sense. I think I'm a pretty good in-game coach. I think I'm pretty good at very quickly reading what the opposition is doing or reading where we're going wrong. It's like, well, maybe it's because I spent all my time thinking in minute detail about like knock-on effects of little habits in games and how all that sort of connects and how a team kind of implicitly understands something or implicitly sees an advantage or doesn't see a disadvantage. So yeah, that's the sales pitch for it basically. You're getting more intelligent as a coach and your players should be getting more intelligent as well.
Yeah, I one of the themes that I really like that resonates with a lot of what we do here in Colorado is that trust in players and sort of understanding that they are critical thinkers and they can problem solve on their own. And a lot of times you have to trust in their ability to do so over you giving them the answer book all the time. But could you maybe explain or describe some challenges, or do you explain like the why of a game when you set it up, like what the purpose is, or do you kind of let them figure that out through the incentives? And what are the sort of the challenges of finding the proper incentives to fit that scenario that you're trying to teach them?
Yeah, so I tend not to explain what we're doing, mainly because like one of the first interventions I tend to make is I'll go in and be like, what do you think we're trying to do? And I want people to be thinking that. I want the offense to be thinking, and I want the defense to be thinking like, what are the offense trying to do here? Or what are the defense trying to do here? Or want everyone to be on the sideline or on the pitch to be kind of constantly critically thinking like that. And I will say the most annoying players, but also my favorite players, are the people that just try and game the rules. We're just like, I'm just going to find like just the thing you didn't think about that's just going to ruin this rule for you. I think it was posted in my Discord recently, one of the GP coaches saying, so one of the games we do is called Ferdy Rogers came up with this name. I had a terrible name for it. He calls it Space Hopper. It's basically you divide the pitch into like horizontally into 10-meter sections. And the idea of using this game is, or my concept of using this game was, I wanted the team I was coaching to be better using big spaces, because we were very, like, people just wanted to come in at the disc and get really short gainers, and really wanted us to focus more on like being able to generate a big advantage. So I was like, okay, you have these 10-meter sections, each, like if you throw into the next one, you get 1 point, but if you throw it into the box like 3 ahead, so 30-meter gainer, you get 3 points for that. So you're like massively advantaged by throwing bigger passes rather than throwing shorter passes. One of the GP coaches mentioned to me that they kind of come to the end of the session, the other team like needed 3 points to score, and whoever was pulling was like, cool, just threw a roller pull like straight at the pitch. Like, okay, you can get maximum 1 point and you need 3 points, so you're kind of screwed. And it's like, okay, so it's good to have people like you want that sort of awareness on the pitch. You want your defense to be like, I can see a sneaky advantage here. This is going to be like really useful thing, even though in the moment it's incredibly annoying as a coach, be like,
Yeah.
can you just please play the game properly?
But they're also
'Cause they're
like
trying to practice here.
they're clearly thinking critically. That
Yeah.
definitely makes me think of John Nethercutt. He is a great teacher and a great game breaker in that way, where I've come up with silly games or modified games, and he'll immediately hack it and say, like, don't throw it here, or we're going to play this way because it maximizes our point total, but may not maximize the learning that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And like I said, when I started doing these games, I used to get very frustrated at that sort of player. And then kind of over the course of time, I was like, oh, they're making me a much better coach, because they're making me think of it. Like, they're making me think through it from all angles. I can't just be like, okay, I want you to practice the space off game to practice big space. And I'm just like going to have a sketched idea. And I'm just going to assume that you're all going to get it immediately and it's going to work perfectly. To be honest, most of the games, I'm not sure I've ever put a game in with a team and it's just worked the way I imagined it working first time. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I kind of back to what you're saying. I think one of the things it's taught me is, like, players are really smart if you let them be smart. If you if you treat them like idiots and just be like, you have to do what I say. And I definitely did that a lot when I started coaching. It's be like, if you all just did what was in my head and what I'm like verbally saying to you, we would be really good. But of course, like, everyone's different. Every player has different strengths and weaknesses. Every player sees the game a bit differently. Now I've almost gone like completely the other way, where it's like, I just want the players to show me what they can do and like what they can make of a situation, and then I'll come in and be like, that was good, or like, do you think that was good? Do nothing. What do you think could have done better? It's like, it's so weird for someone who is like quite authoritarian. I am very authoritarian. I really want things done in a certain way, and it's been a really big mental shift for me to kind of let go. And now I'm almost the other person, like, advising coaches, be like, stop getting frustrated with your players, chill, think about it. I know that wasn't what you wanted, but like, there was good things there, right? Like, can you pick them out? And maybe trust that your players can come to solutions. Like, the big limitation to drills for me is that you can't drill every situation on the ultimate pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point you're going to need your players to be able to think for themselves and be able to discover things for themselves and be able to see the correct or the best solutions in the moment. So I was like, well, why wait till you get to a tournament? And it's really important to do that. Why not do that at training when the stakes aren't as high? And then when you get to a tournament, you've kind of gone through those teething problems and players have become more used to taking on that burden.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we had just had a podcast with Bryce, the coach of Utah, and this was like one of his big points as well, was just wanting to have his players be adaptable and setting them up in scenarios where they're learning how to make quick decisions and react to different new things. And because like every defense is going to show you something different, and like what we talk about a lot on here is like a good defense isn't going to let you do what you want to do. So like the players that can figure out how to attack some new defense or, some new offense game by game, point by point, is really important. And I think it's a good mindset for a coach because it kind of takes, like you were saying, it puts it in your control rather than being in a mindset where you're blaming your players. Like, why aren't you just doing this? And it's a lot of like, how can I help you figure out, how can I describe what we're doing better? How can I like talk to you and, give you feedback better so that you are becoming your best player? And it's not just like me trying to get a bunch of robots out there. What is one of your favorite games, without spoiling too much from the book? What's your most proven game? What's your go-to? Your week one of practice, you haven't had much time to think maybe. Which game are you go into?
Well, this isn't even slightly original. I think maybe one of the misconceptions with like modified games or constraint-led approach or any of the things is that it has to be complex. My go-to is just like the good old-fashioned one possession game. So it's like, there's your modification. You get one possession. You have to treasure that disc. On defense, like, you can get fired up. Like, if you earn that disc, like, you've won the rep. Congrats. You don't have to do anything fancy. That's always been my bread and butter. I think it's a great mental conditioning tool because of the pressure of it, but it's also like as a practice tool. It's so time efficient. Like, there's nothing worse than when you're scrimmaging practice and like a point goes on for 15 minutes. It's like everyone on the sideline is getting grumpy. You're like, wondering, do I just like tell everyone to come? I've done that those times. It's like, everybody, this point's over. This is rubbish. Like, no one's benefiting from this point going on any longer. Right. But one possession game kind of solves a lot of those timing problems.
So do you do it only one possession for the offense, and the defense, if they get the D, they don't get a shot to put it in? It's just...
Depends on the situation. My default is one possession each, but if we're working on exclusively something for the offense, then it's probably just one possession because I just don't waste time. Get on with the next rep.
We do some similar things, and I'll give you one that we like to do that's in the same vein, which you may already do something similar. So, like one thing that we like to work on, which honestly, as a team, as Colorado Ultimate, we're not good at transition offense. I'll tell you that right now, and it is something that we are trying to work on and have been for way longer than you would think, because we're truly not very good at it unless Noah Kuhlman's on the field for us. But the situation that I like is a sort of that one possession each, but like the way, so if offense turns it over, sometimes we'll even play it like if they score, they'll immediately just drop it, and then defense has a fast break opportunity, but it's not focused on an infinite possession where they have it's just like 3 to 4 passes, and the only goal is to get it into a more advantageous position. It's not to score, it's not to set up, it's just pick up the disc and go. Because I think that's such a golden opportunity for teams to be attacking in transition so often. And in America, you'll see a lot of teams do it pretty well, but a lot of teams will completely stop play, set up their structure, their handler picks up the disc, and then you're working from a stop disc situation on the sideline, which is not ideal.
Yeah, and like, no disrespect to most D-lines, but most D-lines probably not as good at Frisbee as the opposition O-line, so that never makes sense. You're like, we're going to just take them on and like after giving them a chance to think.
Right.
I always think the best time to score a break is like the offense is going to be frustrated and just turn over.
Attack.
There's going to be a mental lapse. There's very few teams I think that you can say are just impervious to just like no one's a robot. No one would just be like, oh, we turned over playing full effort D immediately. You can punch them in the mouth quickly. That's great. Actually, one of the things I like to do for transitions is like 2 possessions each. Like, we just play 2 possessions each. So it's like you can score both your possessions. So you can still focus on playing good ultimate, but it means there's three transition opportunities. Like, you're guaranteed multiple transition opportunities in that game. So it's like you can play great offense or great defense and walk away happy without having to like make it too artificial. I just actually go back to, I'll tell you what my actual favorite game is. I kind of caught down, picked the first that came in my head. My actual favorite game is one I only ever use like once or twice a season, and it's the blocks only game. It's like only like you have to get breaks to score, and turnovers don't count unless it's a block. So offensive throwaway goes back to the thrower. Any sort of offensive mistake just goes back to the thrower. Just like it's a uncontested foul or something. It's like you have to go earn it, which obviously just raises the defense level so much because you can't rely on the offense messing up. The funny thing, every time I've done it, the offense level goes through the roof because they are suddenly so hyper focused on like where all the defenders are. Pretty much every time we do, no one can get a block, which is like It's almost like a reverse offense drill by focusing so much on the defense.
Yeah. We've done something similar too, where you can only get a point by getting a block. Sometimes definitely a point can last a very, very long time. But I like that.
Makes you appreciate how good your offense is sometimes.
Yeah, seriously. Kins, I think you might have wanted to switch over to one of the articles, but I'm kind of stuck on the coaching stuff, and just because Ian, you in another one of the articles you talk about feedback in general, and Kins, I know this is a favorite topic of yours. Can you talk about your preferred feedback loop and describe what you mean when you say feedback lag?
So I'm maybe the worst person you could talk to about, because the one major bit of feedback I get in a season is you don't give enough feedback, which is completely true. A lot of that's just due, to me. So I'm a massive introvert, and I'm quite shy as well.
Ian, you and I are maybe the same person.
It's a weird fit for a coach. It's basically I don't know, Mike, from your background, if you worked with other coaches. For me, I'm generally the only coach on the team, so that's immediately a lot of pressure for feedback. And I always try to tell people, think if I did nothing but give feedback at training sessions, there's 30 of you. Divide that by the amount of time we have a training. Take out warm-ups. Take out all the time you have to spend getting water and stuff, and amount time I need to set up whatever it is that we're doing. And then tell me how much time I can realistically talk to you about. So yeah, I'm not good at this. So actual feedback for people, not good. In terms of feedback lag, what I mean is, as a coach, when you're trying to learn to be better as a coach, it's so hard to know if what you're doing is working in any way. I say in the article, you don't know until you get to the tournament that you're aiming for the season. Even then, you might not necessarily know. You might have improved the team and you might do worse than you did the previous year. You might not have improved the team and you might do better than you did the previous year, and everyone's happy because the result was good. Mm-hmm. It's very, it's just a weird sport because it's so tournament focused, compared to a sport where you're playing a game every week and you can be okay, we did this at practice this week. I can kind of see that in the game at the weekend or on the Friday night or whatever. We can take we didn't do well in that game. We can do some reps of practice the next week, and you just keep that loop going constantly of what's working, what isn't working. But an ultimate, you can lose your best player to an injury first game tournaments. That's happened. Lucky it's never happened to my teams. It's happened to loads of teams that I know, and it's okay, how do you judge how the season went then? You're just kind of screwed from the get-go.
One thing that I do like about competition versus my professional life is the feedback loop is at least much quicker than the cogs, the machine of the corporate world, where it's just red tape, and process approval, waiting for some random person that's not associated with the problem you're working on to give the rubber stamp. What I like about sports is, as you said, there is that lag, but competition is what fuels, I think, iteration. And I hear what you're saying, though, because tournaments is such a weird we do have the UFA here now, newly rebranded UFA, where we do kind of have more of that format. Game to game, it's difficult to make adjustments because each team is different, and for any number of reasons in a tournament situation. But overall, I do like that we do get that feedback from competition and can then iterate. And I think the challenge is, how can you create those situations in a practice setting away from competition, where it's still viable? One thing that we talk about a lot is, I think a lot of teams aim to make their practices as challenging as tournaments, at least to a degree. It cannot be balls to the wall 100% of the time. But kids, maybe you would prefer that, or you would run yourself into the ground. One other thing that you mentioned in your Substack is sort of along the lines of feedback potentially is potential like misaligned goals. We are fortunate, I think, like because in like a professional sports world, I could be fired pretty easily for not achieving results, and I have failed so many times as a coach. And you're right. Like I actually do have other coaches that I get to coach with, so that is a huge weight off of my shoulders. But one thing that we've really been able to focus on over the last few years is growth. We don't have to worry about results as much. We have had decent results, I would say, over the last couple of years as a program in the state of Colorado and across the U.S. But can you talk maybe a little bit about what it means when your personal goals as individuals are, or how you set those to align with team goals or growth goals versus performance goals?
Yeah, but obviously my background is all Irish Frisbee. And I think one of the challenges we have, and probably have with a lot of smaller communities, is like in order to have any team, like you're not going to get 20 to 30 people who all want the same outcome from the team. Like we're going to get some people that are mega competitive, like they just want to do Frisbee like as their job essentially. Like they want to push themselves to be as elite as they can be, and they want their team to do the same. And you don't get people who just want to kind of show up to training twice a week and hang out with their friends and like have a competitive sport to play throughout their 20s or whatever. And like all those goals are great goals to have, but it's only difficulty becomes when then if the team itself doesn't have a clear vision, and so everyone's kind of just filling in that vacuum with like what they think the team should do. It's always messy. It's always a disaster in my experience. It's like, because once the pressure hits, then people start pulling in different directions. So yeah, I think it's I've done like coaching courses and stuff on behalf of the Irish Flying Disc Association. Like one of the questions I ask the teams, the people from the teams I'm working with, is like what are your goals? I can't even remember the categories I use, like performance, development, fun. I think can't remember the other one is. It was like, can you rank them, your 4 priorities? And like every team just says like every person has a different configuration of the 4. Like you can't make this work. Like you all don't know you want the same things. It's probably possibly where my authoritarian streak always comes in handy on teams, because I'm just like, no, this is the goal, this is what we're doing. So like get in or toughen up. And people generally can do that for a bit, but yeah, like as a coach, it's just so hard to coach a team who doesn't want the same thing that you do. In particular, because obviously like you're coach generally see very hard working. To be fair, sometimes it is the opposite. I've seen where it's like the team wants an elite level performance and the coach is kind of half in, half out. But yeah, I think if you're in a coach situation, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be like a performance goal thing. It can just be like the way you want to play. Like if I was coaching a team, I'm not coaching at the moment, but if I was coaching a team and went to practice and they're like, listen, we just want to do drills. We only want to do drills. I could probably take 2 weeks of that and I'd be like, no, I'm out. Like, this is boring. This is just boring. I can't do this. Like, there's no creativity. There's no innovation. I'm sorry, but like, I'm going to find a team that wants like practice to be a bit more innovative and a bit more creative and a bit more like Frisbee being played at them rather than standing around in lines, cones.
Yeah, having that drive to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Kins, does this make you think of anything as someone, we're spoiled in the States a little bit with the number of players we have?
No,
What comes to mind for?
I actually used to think about this a lot, especially when I was younger. I would say I struggled with it in my college days as someone, and I think you see it a lot in college, especially because you have the older kids, the seniors and the fifth years who it's, coming up on their last years. And then you have the freshmen and the sophomores who have just gotten to school. They're, they want to win, but they know in the back of their mind that they have years ahead of them and that kind of thing. And so right there, it's easy to get a lot of people that have misaligned goals where, this is our year. The older guys, this is the year we want to win. This is the year we want to go all out. And for the freshmen, maybe they're a little more concerned with going to the parties and meeting people that year. And like, they're not sacrificing their nights out to make sure they wake up early for the training the next day. So I used to struggle with that a lot. And what I got to was, one, it's just really important for everyone to respect the other people's goals. So like, I really want to win, and Joe Schmo really wants to just come to practice, hang out with friends. So like, it's important for Joe Schmo to not distract people during, a drill or while the coach is talking, because, that's a respectful thing to do for people that want to win. It's important for me not to be a total dickhead to the people that want to just come and hang out and have a good time. You know what I mean? So I think that it's really important to identify, I think, and like having those exercises where people talk about them is so important, because you begin to understand where other people are coming from. And I think that's really the basis of all of this. Like, you need that understanding so that I know who wants what. Because if I'm able to identify the other people that are really competitive, those are the people I'm going to focus more of my feedback on potentially. And maybe I'll be a little more casual with Joe, who just wants to, get a good time out of practice.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. So I think it's that piece of like compromising and respecting the other people's goals, because you should be able to do both of them and not interfere. And the other thing is, like, even the people that want to come and have a good time, they still, once you're at a tournament, like, no one likes, people cared less and more about losing, but no one likes losing. Whether or not it's losing, actually, I guess, like, performing well, like, everyone wants to perform well as a team. Like, once you're out there, no matter how much you've cared even going in, like, no one likes going out as a team and playing really bad. So I think that's why a lot of teams are able to, at least, like, even Joe and I are able to agree on that like, we want to go out and like do pretty well. And for him, he's going to do better if, things are a little more relaxed, we're a little more casual, and I'm going to do better if, we're going balls to the wall and really trying to win. So figuring out like who these different people are and compromising and like working together is the most important part for me, that I've gotten a lot better at as I've gotten older and was really bad at when I was in college.
So there's, I think, a couple pieces to that. One, understanding where people are at, just like you described, and also as part of leadership and coaching, to make sure that you can push people in a fun environment. Like, how do you make it joyful? How do you make hard work fun? It can't always be pure fun for everybody, but that's sort of one of the challenges that I think I enjoy about coaching is finding different ways to teach people. And I think potentially, Ian, through teaching by creating games, that is potentially a really good way to do that, where they're not feeling, I was going to say they're not feeling constrained, even though it is called constraints-led approach. But they're not feeling, bogged down, or like that it's, I think you also said that it doesn't feel repetitive, but you're still getting the benefits of repetition. My Mac is sending some auto emojis there. But anyway, Ian, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, kids, that's really excellently put. I think the other thing about not having, or where misaligned goals show up, in my experience a lot is like Irish teams or smaller teams, or you're trying to build your club up. So you're like, we want everyone to join. We want to like embrace everybody, treat everyone equally, like make it fun for new people, make it fun for people that want to socialize. Then you get to a tournament, and like the classic mistake is then like you turn it like win now mode, and you only play like 10 players, and the people that you spent all year trying to recruit and convince them that they want to be around, it's like standing aside and be like, what's going on? Like, I want to play.
Yeah.
And like, oh no, we want to like make quarterfinals or something. It's like, well, why? What benefit is that to you? Like, you will have a club next year, right? So maybe focus on that first.
Yeah, that's a tough growing pain for sure.
And it's important to have that diversity of like what people want, because you can imagine a team that has all the mega competitive people having a hard time like interacting and doing well at an event or tournament. You can also imagine the other spectrum of a bunch of people who just want to hang out, also probably not doing well. So it's like,
but isn't it so much fun when the mega competitive bunch of people get their ass kicked by the casual fun-loving people that don't go to practice?
Yeah,
so lose.
Yeah, you never know. And I think it's about leveraging like what each person wants to maximize, their output. And that's really like how teams are going to be successful, because on a successful team, you're going to have the different types of people. And then if you're able to put those people in positions that, they enjoy what they're doing and the team gets the most out of them, like that's how the team is going to be successful. And obviously that's a lot easier said than done. But I do also notice that like it's a lot easier for a team to have a good culture when you're at least performing well. Even if you're not winning, but if you're playing well, it's a lot easier for the team to be happy than like a team that's not performing well and just losing. It's really hard for that team to still like each other and be having a good time. Whereas the team that's winning or even just playing really well in games, it's more often that they're in a good mood. Like it's still possible that, maybe they are winning, but like they've just got some real dicks on the team, so people are enjoying it. But usually those teams find that are winning are also enjoying themselves.
Winning cures all.
Winning and
I actually
performing well.
Performing.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure winning cures all. I think that's one of the lessons I learned once I started winning. I was like, oh, winning doesn't cure all. Like just that kind of sucks. I assumed, hey, we win the European Championship, everyone's going to be super happy. And then there's still people upset about game time or something. It's like, we just won the final European Championships. We're the first team ever from Ireland to win European Championship. I'm like, yeah, but I want to play more. Like, I'm okay with the decisions I made. I'm happy enough. I think I did okay, but I think genuinely the happiest I've been playing or coaching Ultimate was when I wasn't that successful. As much as I enjoy the winning and the success a hell of a lot, and I can't stop chasing it. It's like something about those early years when I sucked and the team sucked were really fun.
It was just, that's funny. Yeah.
I do miss, I think one of the issues at coaching at a really competitive level is I do want to innovate. Like I want to try things. But I'm also, I'm contradicting myself a little bit because I mentioned that I'm fortunate to be able to focus on growth a lot, but only to an extent, right? Like another thing you mentioned, Ian, in one of your articles is I think you call them fixed ideas, and we'll say like don't do things because people always did them that way. Atkins, I know you are all about innovation and would love to try new things, but
we got Quinn.
We always
innovation.
It's hard to not feel resistance from people when they've been doing something that's worked for a long time, and so from that standpoint, sometimes I wish like I did just coach a middle school team and we could just try stuff.
Yeah, Kinsey might be just my first ever club tournament. I played for a pickup team, which was run by this old Dutch guy. I say old, he's probably the age I am now, but he seemed really old back then. And he made us run a 1-4-2 with like a reset, essentially just spend their whole time behind the disc as an emergency, just like
Love
really
it.
trying to isolate. Yeah, I thought that might float your boat.
Love it.
Never seen it since, but I enjoyed it. I was one of the two downfield, having a great time. You're like, yeah, I'm fast. Just throw me the disc.
And then if you guys get it, you're off to the freaking races. See,
Yeah.
I saw I guess the Belgium team running that against the US in the U24 finals, but I think they were doing it a little, they were doing it not how I would propose doing it, where he was so far back that it was just so easy to poach off him, which everyone, as soon as you suggest an offense like that, they're like, well, aren't you just going to poach off him? And you're like, yeah, that's the logical thing to do. But I think if that player who was behind the disc was more active and thoughtful, like I think if I really want to try an offense like this, and I was thinking about this the other day, and I think I would have to be the player to go to the back, because I don't think and genuinely, just because I've thought about it the most, and I would honestly enjoy it, like, because I actually think that's one of the most crucial spots, because if you're getting poached off, I think that's your time. Like, I mean, for a player like myself, like if you're not guarding me, like that's like my dream. Like I'll just go get the disc, I'll start moving it, we'll start running give goes, like that kind of stuff, and you weren't guarding me, so it's very easy. But I think for a more passive player, it's like my job is to stand behind the disc and not do anything, and that's where you start to run into trouble with it. So I do think it's an interesting.
You should volunteer to coach Belgium U24s next time around. I'm sure they'd be happy.
I will.
Yeah.
Maybe I will. Maybe I will go out there and give them my my application. I would love that.
Yep. One of the hardest things, like I'm sure you experience this, transitioning from being like a player coach to just like a coach, is kind of what kids talking to be like, I have this idea. If I just do it, it'll definitely work. Because I understand what's going on, but like I can't do it.
Yeah.
I have to make someone else do it. And
I don't like
difficult.
that. That's a scary thought. I don't like that at all. That's why I'll just play till I'm like, I don't know.
I will say I think there is merit to having more people trail a disc and having fewer people downfield. In the sense of there are many, you can change the angle of attack in so many different ways by having one or more people behind the disc, especially if they're not being guarded. If they're not being guarded, that doesn't really matter as long as they're accessible and have options after they receive the disc. And on the other side, it makes sense, right, for there to be fewer players downfield and rather than one person with a disc and 6 people downfield, because then there's,
Uber space.
Yeah, there's just more space to attack and access.
And I think the thing is, when you say like some formation, like, however, I mean, like the thing that I think is, I just don't really get caught up in the like numbers that people want to label their offense as. Like, I think with a lot of people, like if I say like 4-1-2 or whatever, you may say like, then they just like imagine like the offense moving down the field in like exactly this like 4-1-2 formation, which like scares them into not wanting to do it. Where like my imagination of how this type of offense would work would be like largely similar to how we're playing offense now, but like we start slightly different at the beginning, and it probably changes some of the initial angles and like initial patterns that you're going to run. But once we start moving the disc, ideally it's like the disc is sort of near the sideline, like in between the sideline and the midfield, and someone is isolated in front of them making a dangerous cut with like a bunch of space. Like, it doesn't really change how we're playing offense that much. It's just a different way of starting it and, getting the disc moving in a more dangerous way. But you say these different formations and people are like, no, vert stack. It has to be a vert stack.
I think you must have got far back in my archive skins, because one of my first posts is the headline, tactics aren't shapes, because I get really frustrated when people just talk about tactics in terms of like, as you say, like the configuration of it, how do you start out. So I had a good fun. I had like 6 or 7 examples, be like, just screenshots, be like, what do you think this tactic is? So like, basically the point is like, after 2 passes, the shape is gone.
Right.
The shape is just a starting thing, and people need to stop obsessing about what exactly that shape is. Like, my thing for tactics, like my overriding thought, offense, defense, is like, what is the objective? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, how are you trying to score to this gear? Like, and then the shape should flow from that, not the other way around. Like, we're going to play a vert sack, and so because we're playing a vert sack, we're going to move the disc like this. It should be the other way around. Like, we will move the disc like this. Vert sack probably makes most sense to start out of. That's the way we're going to do it. Maybe like, vert sack, but maybe take one player out and put him behind the disc. Does that make more difference than playing a 1, 2, 4?
Yeah. And I
whatever
think,
it is, it doesn't matter.
Right. And I think like a lot of these formations, starting formations, like I don't think that there's many like numbers that add up to 7 that you could throw out there that wouldn't work to start a point. And I think the big thing for me is like vertical stacks, horizontal stacks, side stacks. Like this is what teams have been planning against for the last 10 years, 15 years. So this is what the most well-equipped to stop. So like try a different starting formation that will confuse them a little bit. And then if they get really good at stopping that, then just go back to the fucking vert and try doing that. And I really like what you said, that the tactic isn't just the shape, because we ran this a couple times at practice last year. And, you know, I really wanted to do it in the AUDL because they switched the pulling rules to closer up. So having like more people back to feel the pull, I thought was really helpful. And so we practiced it a couple times, and like after the first couple of throws are different than how our vert stack would look, the first couple of throws in a vert stack would look. But then after that, we're flowing, in the same way that you're flowing after you throw like, it to the one running to the side in the vert stack. Like you're just moving the disc down the side line and whatever.
Kins, I have some comments on more generally on the resistance to the new ideas. 2 things happened. Three things happened. 1, we saw success at first. 2, we saw some challenges at practice and tried to talk through them, which was met with mild resistance because it's like, well, this is hard because it's different. And then 3, we didn't give it enough time, probably.
Well, we started for background for everyone. We started running it in the playoffs of the ADL, and we lost.
That's bold.
We lost in the first game.
So the worst possible outcome, right, which is a loss in a very meaningful game, which I would not attribute that to structure. By the way, it was miscommunication. Turnover, like literally like an open person that
there were a couple turnovers that I would attribute to it, like from our first pass and like not having practiced that starting point a couple times. We had a couple miscommunications, but like largely, I would say it wasn't like
right. Sure. But the overarching point is outcomes should not always dictate whether or not it's a good idea. You should expect resistance. And I suppose it's our fault for timing of things, right? I still feel, structure aside, concepts were valid, but Ian, I know you've mentioned a lot as well about how we shouldn't necessarily let outcomes dictate what if what you're doing is correct, and how have you met with that challenge in the past? Like, how do you know? How do you evaluate a season if it's not purely on where you finished at, European Championships?
Yeah, well, I think like if you're talking about as a coach, so it's separated from the team for a second. Talk about like as a coach trying to evaluate yourself. Like outcome is one part of the evaluation. It's always going to be like we're playing competitive sports. We're doing it to try and compete. So outcome is a huge part of it. But you have to have some sort of way to measure yourself that isn't just the outcomes. So like I focus on that just on my habits as a coach. So like the most basic one is like, am I sending out the practice plans in advance of the session? Like really simple. If I do that, that means I'm thinking through the practice plans beforehand, presumably. I'm taking the time to do them. Which means like practice is going to be well planned. It's going to be well organized. So it's like a very, really simple one. And you're like, you just have to try and find like little check marks for yourself to be like, you're coming perfect. I was like, okay, I did that better this season than last season. So like I'm getting more disciplined. Like one thing for me, like I said, I'm pretty shy. I'm an introvert. I find it very hard to like. I'm very focused on training like on what we're doing as a team. Find it very hard to like naturally talk to individuals. So like I started just like writing everyone's names down in my notebook and be like tick them off when I talk to them, which might sound bizarre to anyone who's like naturally goes around talking to people. But for me, that's how I needed to kind of hold myself accountable to getting better at doing that. It's just like literally, yes, make a log for yourself of when you talk to everybody and just be like, okay, I haven't talked to this person for 4 weeks. I should probably say something to them or I'm going to think I hate them. And I don't think about their game at all when like I think nothing else except about how they're playing and so on. As a team, like it's really difficult because of the structure of the sport, and like that's where like the danger of going into a season without a clear idea of what it is that your team is about. Like that's where it's most pronounced, because if you don't have, we were talking about like that discussion start of the season where you get what everyone wants from the team, like what the team wants to do, like what's the objective of the program, like what the objective program is this year, then like what are you going to judge yourself on? You're only going to judge yourself on either where you finished in the tournament or like how much fun you had in it, which is incredibly subjective. So like you have to, I think, start at the beginning of the season and say like these are the things we want to do. Like whether like if you're a college program might be like we need to recruit 10 people. So like if we recruit 10 people and we suck at nationals or regionals or whatever it is, like okay, we're not happy with performance on the pitch, but we're really happy with our performance recruiting because we set ourselves up well for next year. Or it could be retention for the next year or whatever it is. But yeah, you just have to find some non-result stuff at the start of the season and be like, these are the metrics you want to hit. Because yeah, otherwise you're going to be lost by that placement.
Yeah, Kins, what do you think about that? About in terms of how do you measure a successful season when we don't win?
Kind of just how I'm feeling, I guess. Just kind of what, like this. I don't know. It's been tough because I haven't really had a full season in a while. But I think maybe it's tough for me as a player. But I do put a lot of stock into where we finish, especially because I think I take a lot of responsibility and feel like a lot of control over the result, and therefore, like, if the result isn't winning, then that's kind of one of the biggest metrics that I use to decide whether or not like what I was doing during the year and the ways I was acting as a teammate or playing during the games, like that kind of dictates how I felt about the year. And then I guess like there's some of that is based off of like my expectations of the team going in, but I haven't been on a team in a while that I haven't thought could win the national championship. So like most of it I would say is based off of that. Like even last year, for Bravo, like it was a great year. We did well at nationals, but losing in the semifinals in a game that we were winning by a lot in felt like a disappointing ending, even though the tournament prior to that was so we played really well, but that finishing with that half still leaves a bad taste in your mouth that kind of erases the fact that we were doing pretty well up until then.
This is something that I think about a lot for sure, and I still have dreams or nightmares a little bit about that game. Like I literally did after like this past weekend. I dreamt about the machine loss, but I think over the years, I at first thought it was jadedness. I thought that I was becoming less concerned about winning. Well, actually, that probably is true, but I think I thought it was me becoming jaded and not caring as much about the team. And what I've sort of realized over the years is I'm really lucky. Honestly, I'm surrounded by good players, and I've been surrounded by good coaches to learn from. That has sort of steered me in the direction of how rewarding it is to see teams grow and to have an impact on that. And it's a really hard feeling to describe, but for me, that has it's just mattered more. Like I've also dreamt about 2022, having forgotten that we won. Like in the dream, we lost, but I was still having like very positive feelings of the season because overall it was one of an upward trajectory of growth.
Yeah, I guess part of it too is how much I feel like the team came together. So I think like that's why in the past couple of seasons, well, last season, even though we lost a disappointing game, you're not like as I'm still relatively happy because in a lot of ways the team came together and played for each other and played as a team in a lot of similar ways that we did the year that we won. So that makes you feel good about it and feels like a good mark because like that's got to be one of the biggest goals of every team is like coming together and like really playing as a team, which is really difficult to like play off people's strengths and cover up other people's weaknesses and just like play for each other. And I do feel like we've done that the past 2 seasons, and so that feels really good. But like we said too, like the outcome is just like so hard to not focus on because especially like an outcome like that when you just really don't live up to what you thought you were going to.
100%. I'd like to kind of, Ian, we've asked you kind of a lot about your philosophies and maybe get into more of the meat and potatoes of some of the articles you've written, the Substack itself. I'll let Kins ask a couple questions that he has, but could you just talk about what was the origin of the Substack that you have of Better Everyday Coaching and what your goals are with it?
Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, a lot of what I learned as a coach starting out was from blogs. Like Lou Burris had an incredible blog. Jim Parnell had a blog. Like Sky just kind of starting up right then. The Huddle was around. A few other blogs I can't remember the names of. Because we didn't have
Catfish Corner, baby.
Catfish Corner. That's Coach
TK.
Yeah, that's in my bookmarks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I learned tons of it because there was no other way to learn at the time. Like there was essentially no streaming of games, so like you couldn't learn from watching. There's no other coaches in Ireland, so I couldn't really learn from anyone. Like Keane was my first coach and an incredible one, but he left for London, which is classic Irish story of people leave the country to go on to great things elsewhere. So I always wanted to kind of give back some of that. And yeah, just at the time so I started it a few weeks after Radler won European Club Championships, because I kind of figured my stock was probably as high as it was ever going to be. So people might actually be interested in it. But actually it was also kind of the culmination of a goal I had. So my first European Championship was with Ireland mixed in 2011. Became sixth, which was Ireland's joint best ever result at the time. And being a very young, arrogant person, I was like made a promise myself that I would win a medal in every division, like open, women's, and mixed as a coach at a European Championship. So winning with Radler in 2022 completed the set for me. So I was
congratulations!
I kind of feel like my lifetime coaching goal was achieved essentially at the first time of asking each division. So I got it done in 10 years instead of I was going to be chasing that whale for the rest of my life. I was like, okay, I think I'm done. I don't know what's next, so I guess I'll start writing this blog and just get out some of the stuff that's been rattling around my head for all these years.
And so you're not actively coaching or planning to coach?
No, so I had some health issues last year, like at the start of the season last year, so around April. I started having panic attacks like constantly. Didn't know they were panic attacks at the time, so it was like for 2 months. We thought it was heart problems, so I was in and out of the hospital for 2 months. Just like kept getting worse and worse and worse. I was like basically having panic attacks anytime I left my house for the last 2 or 3 weeks of that. And eventually the doctor was like, we can't find anything wrong with you. It's probably mental. You should like go to a therapist and get that dealt with. So I did that, and it helped a lot.
Glad to
and be able to mostly be a normal human being again. But yeah, obviously had to step down from running coaching because I couldn't be at the session. So then for this year, I'm feeling a bit stronger. Thinking about it, I've been talking to a few teams about potentially coaching, but probably leaning towards not doing it. I'm not sure when this podcast is going out because I haven't told all the teams yet that that's my decision. I'm not 100% sure yet, but yeah, pretty sure I won't be head coaching any like competitive teams this year. Hoping to get back into doing little bits around the Dublin community.
Well, definitely glad to hear you are feeling at least a little bit better. I don't know if we actually had Charlie Hoppus on. Was that December, Atkins?
Yeah, I think late December, maybe early January.
I don't know if you had a chance to listen to that, Ian, but he had very similar circumstances as the New York Empire coach. So it's I hope you do stay in touch, because that does remind me I should send Charlie a text to see how he's doing. But me and Alex, I'm sure, are more than happy to be resources for you if you ever need any additional support.
Yeah, you can watch
Appreciate
our
that.
Bravo tournaments. Yeah. You could be like a remote assistant coach for us. You don't.
But truly, though, honestly, I actually did have a bullet
great.
point. No, and my thought was that a lot of the top teams have a European star player playing on them. Both the finalists did. We did not. I don't recall if Ring did. Do you remember?
No Ring.
You missed that.
Just truck and
the secret sauce missing.
But potentially, yeah. And
yep.
But have you ever considered?
Irish boys I can put you in touch with.
We'd love
please
to take them.
Please do get us in touch with them. We have talked to Ferdy and Smurf a little bit.
Oh no, they're terrible. You don't want them.
But have you ever considered coaching a U.S. team, and is that anything that interests you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, U.S. is like the place to be in terms of competition. I don't know if you've ever experienced this. Like, I can't take a coaching job if it's easy. I just can't.
I know what you mean.
It doesn't interest me whatsoever. Like even now, like, Irish teams are getting really, really good. Over the last few years, started weighing things. I'm like, if the Irish team's too good, I don't know if I want to coach it. I kind of let someone else do that. I want to do it. I just want to do it the hard way. So yeah, definitely something that's a pipe dream, because moving to America is quite a big ask.
Oh, well, we'll meet you in the middle. You do remote coaching.
Atlantic. Yeah, cool. We'll find a little island.
Remote coaching for Bravo. It's not a paid position, but we'll send a jersey or something. Maybe a disc.
Send it in a stop rocket. Well,
yep.
I'll let it off in my living room when I watch it.
Yeah, we'll get Babbitt to stomp that thing over across the ocean.
Across the pond.
But yeah, no, that's funny. One of the ones that I did want to talk about on your Substack was that caught my eye when scrolling through it, was the one about fakes. I think it's an underutilized part of a lot of players' games. So maybe you want to recap your thoughts on using fakes in games, like when they're useful. I guess primarily for like the person with the disc fakes, because it was a really interesting read. So maybe if you want to recap that for some of the people.
Yeah, so obviously heavily inspired by Idris Dolan's good throwers don't pivot, which I think everyone, including me, it's like a Mandela effect. Everyone thinks of that as good throwers don't fake, but it was good throwers don't pivot. So I read that when I was, again, young and impressionable, and definitely took that on as gospel for a long time. So I just wanted to, with the post, kind of explain a little bit more of how fakes work. 'Cause I don't think a lot of people think about it. They just think about like, oh, you get your mark moving this way, and then I step it the other way and throw past them. And I guess obviously Idris Nolan's argument is like, you don't need to like just throw past them, because there's there's loads of space all around people if you can get the release points. But mainly what I focus on was like, if you really understand what and when the mark actually moves, it's a lot easier to make effective fakes, because like it's very simple. To logically think about it. It's like, if I step out to throw a forehand, you're marking me. If you want to put pressure on a forehand, you can't wait till I'm taking a step out and in the motion of throwing before you move. You basically have to move as soon as I move, as soon as you react to my movement. So if I know you have to do that, then it just takes a very minor movement for me to shift you, create enough room for a throw. So that was the thrust of it, and I illustrated a few different clips and stuff with people like using what I've always tried to explain to people as like micro fakes. So it's like, if you think of faking as like from going from like no faking to like what I call full faking, which is like showing your entire throw as a fake, which is like, when I started playing, that's all I was taught by people. That's why just knowing this thing was so good for me, because I was like, nah, that's stupid. Stop telling me to like show my whole throw as a fake. I know people still teach that way in Ireland anyway. But it's like, yeah, if you understand, like, you can do this whole range of faking, you just need to pick the point that's going to move the mark out of the way so you get the throw that you actually want to throw. Like, the same applies for cutting, obviously. I think one of the things that's important to realize is like, it's not the same for everyone. It's not the same for every throw. Like, the threat you have as a thrower is going to mean you have to fake. Like, you can make smaller fakes because people are going to have to jump on the throw that they really want to take away. So you can get, obviously, like the shimmy is the most.
The shimmy, yeah.
The shimmy is the classic one. Like, anyone's got a really strong forehand, like, just has to do that little shoulder shimmy, and the mark has to jump across to try and stop him, and then he's have a big window for a backhand. But like, the same principle applies for everything. If you have the threat, people will move super early, super aggressively to try and cover it. So my very unoriginal advice for people is like, get really good at a throw and kind of use that as like the gravity for your fakes. So like, for me as a player, it was like a really low release backhand that I developed throwing under the benches in Trinity College, which were like 2 inches off the ground. So I was able to just like throw off the floor. That helps being short sometimes, because you can get super low. So it's like, okay, I just need to even sometimes like put the disc into that grip, and the mark will like jump across. I'm like, cool, I can do whatever I want from here. So yeah, that was the thrust of it.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice too. Like, when reading that article, I thought of like probably my most successful fake is just like catching an upline pass and pretending like I'm gonna throw like a backhand as hard as I can. That usually gets a mark going like pretty far around, and then you just, especially if you're on the sideline, even if they're like forcing backhand and I catch it on the backhand side, if I just throw a huge backhand fake, even if it just gets them hesitating enough, that means I can just throw it off the sideline and that kind of thing. So I think that's a really great point to the threat. And I think it can be a threat of like a throw you're good at, or the threat of just like even an average type of throw that would be dangerous for the defense to allow.
In the situation.
Yeah, exactly. So just like, whatever it may be, the break side cut that they really have to respect, that's also developing downfield, or the upline, or whatever it is. And then if you can, I agree that your fake doesn't have to be some super long-winded motion, but even if you can, there is an art to getting this small, believable fake of like something in the flick of the wrist that just catches the defense's eye and really makes it look that, like you're going to throw something. And then just the ability to have that skill in your arsenal, I think, is so valuable for offensive players.
Yeah. To me, so much of those micro fakes are about your shoulders too, how you dip your shoulders. That's kind of what creates the shimmy motion. TK and I actually were just messaging the other day about the Jimmy Mickles, and everybody knows that he does it, and it's wild that it's still so effective. And I do wonder, are defenders going to get better after watching film and just not react to those things, or is it truly that Jimmy is so good at the shimmy?
I mean, I've never coached against Jimmy Mickle, unfortunately. Um, I think, I imagine defenders are so keyed up to try and stop him throwing anything that they'll bite on anything. And to be fair, it's not like, certainly obviously a more informed defender from watching at home, it doesn't seem like you can just give Jimmy, you can't just like sit down when he's shimmying and be like, yeah, throw what you want.
And he has a great counter throw too. He's got that no pivot backhand that'll throw. So if you don't bite on it, you're probably getting broken around.
Like it's a little bit of a guessing game because if you don't go for the shimmy, like, he's going to start throwing those backhands. And I think I've tried to, give some lessons for a couple people on the shimmy. And I think like for any fake, really, it's just about like thinking about what you're doing when you're actually doing the action of what you're trying to fake. So whether it's the shimmy, which is, if I'm holding in a flick stance, the shimmy should be replicating like how I would be going to pivot into my backhand stance. And if you can get people really thinking about it that way, I think it helps a lot of people, like, and really breaking down that motion, like how is the weight transferring in your feet? Like Mikey said, like where are your shoulders going? Where's your head going? Like if you're holding it in a flick stance and you're going to go throw a backhand, like how does your body move to go throw a backhand? And a good shimmier is going to basically start that motion and then abruptly stop and go the other way. And I think like that's what really gets it. And like your shimmy has to look like you're going to pivot to throw a backhand. And then it's like you're just kind of guessing what's behind you as the mark if you're going to stop that because, you might guess right and they might just be in a shimmy. But if someone's really good at shimmying, their shimmy is going to look exactly like what it looks like when they go to pivot and throw a backhand. So you got to just rely on your reaction speed at that point.
Yeah, I think just go back to the threat. Because I know in all the teams like people who are good at the shimmy have tried to teach it to people and it doesn't always transfer. And like for the reason like they're usually trying to teach it to people that aren't great throwers. It's like, well, why is the mark going to buy the shimmy? Like they have no reason to believe that you want to throw that. And so the analogy I always like to use, but obviously in Ireland sometimes just creates a blank face. It's like if Steph Curry gets some space for a three, he does have to bend his knee, and the defender just like flies past his face and he has a wide open three.
It's such a
Draymond Green is standing at the 3-point line, like it doesn't matter how much.
You're probably standing 5 feet.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
Line anyway.
Yeah, so you need to defense needs to respect what you're doing, and obviously, I think you get some false positives at a lower level because like defenders don't know what they're doing, so they're just biting on everything, and then you get a bit of a shock when you come across a defender who's not an idiot and just like, okay, I'm not going to bite on anything until you prove to me that you can actually complete this break.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's really like what's better, having a good shimmy or having a good around backhand? Because then if you have a really good around backhand, your shimmy doesn't even have to be that believable, but you know they're really respecting you around backhand, so it's going to be easier for you to get off those flicks. That's I think a really good point. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about that I thought was really interesting in your message to us prior to the pod was the idea of players being universal or more specialized going forward. And I think that's such an interesting thing, like as the sport continues to grow and people take it more seriously and people are dedicating more and more time to training and thinking about it, is like, obviously you have a sport like football where it's specialized to the absolute max. Like they're doing a couple things at each position, and
we're talking American football, right?
We are. Yes. Sorry. Hey, sorry. We are talking American. We are talking American football. Yep. Super specialized. And then maybe a sport like, like ultimate, like basketball, where you got to play offense, you got to play defense. There's no stoppage in between. So there's still specialization. There's room for specialization, but often the really good players in basketball are able to do a lot of things. And then there's obviously your really good 3-point shooters, your really good defenders and that kind of stuff. But there's also like a big, market, I suppose, for players that can do everything pretty well. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that. And where do you think, like, if as a coach, both of you who are coaches, like right now, do you value people that are able to do a lot of things pretty well? Or do you value that person who's able to do one specific thing super well?
Yeah, like it's such an interesting thing to think about because obviously, so I use the phrase universality, which comes from football, the real football.
Yeah, the real football.
Soccer for anyone that didn't get that. Which is concept basically like everyone on the pitch needs to be able to do everything because like it's such an dynamic sport. Everyone has to get the ball, everyone has to defend, so everyone needs like a base level. And kind of like theorists always throw around the ideal, which they are doing ultimate as well, is like wouldn't it be great if everyone was just like completely interchangeable. So like everyone was just able to do everything. You'd be swapping positions all the time. You never create a gap because like if you left your position on defense, someone would come in to cover it because they can do the job just as well. On offense, if you go to a certain area of the pitch, someone just fills in for you. You're comfortable everywhere. So I guess theoretically, I think that's great. I don't really think that matches
Realistic.
up with reality. Like I think a lot of what I do, a lot of value I bring to teams as a coach is just maximizing the resources, the playing resources they have, just putting people in positions to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
In Ireland, there is an old football. He's a football pundit on TV. He's very old now. He's very out of touch. He kind of like old man yells at clouds, but very out of touch with like modern tactics and stuff. Name's John Giles. But he always has this expression, or has had this expression, sticks with me, which is just like, it's really simple. Just play your best players in the best positions, and like your team's gonna be better. So like, it's a really simple concept, and I see so many teams just throw it away. And like, to be honest, like the European Championships 5-1, like with the Irish women's team, we won the European Championships. We were 11th seed. With Rana, we were like 18th seed or something.
Wow.
But we finished 4th year before. Like we just had a bad regular season, so we were up there. But it's like we beat so many teams. Where it's just like if you had just like played the way we played, like just like put your best players in their best positions, I don't know, we could beat you. Like you just have more depth of talent because your community is so much bigger. There's so many more players. Like I think a lot of teams kind of chase that goal of like everyone's equal or everyone could do everything. And it's like I just make a living out of exploiting teams doing that. The other thing as well is like universality is like, okay, people chase it as a theory. It's like, would you actually enjoy it more? It's like, I kind of enjoyed the specialization I had as a player. Like I enjoyed doing the thing I was good at as much as I could. Like obviously you want everyone to be competent. You want to be competent in every area. You don't want to be like, oh, I'm out of position, so I can't do anything. But it's like, if I was 6'5", I think I just enjoy scoring goals all the time. And I just think there's a lot of joy to be had in actually finding what you're really good at. Like some teams call it like your superpower, and just like being able to do that as often as possible rather than spending like 5% of your playing time doing things you're good at, 95% of the time doing things that you're maybe not as well equipped for. But yeah, Mike, I'm not sure what you think.
Yeah, it's a complicated answer, or maybe complicated question. I don't know, because there's so many different routes, right? I think one thing that you touched on that really resonates is like just playing to people's strengths, putting them in a position to succeed. I think that's number one. I think a player can have a lot of weaknesses, but still be able to contribute to winning or overall success of the team, however you want to define it. Like you said, ideally everybody can do everything. Atkins he's not quite 6'5", but he can score goals. He moves well in small spaces, and he's a talented thrower. So like from that standpoint, if I could have,
can't play defense though, right?
His defense
not
is,
a lick.
Not as strong as it used to be. We'll say that, but it could be.
What the fuck?
It's more of a physical limitation currently than a actual inability. He's getting back there though. Actually, on the note of specialization, World's Trials is coming up too, and I know the U.S. has had some different philosophies on that, like having taken defensive specialists at times, and like block getters. For us, Jarvis, Matthew Agee is someone, he is not single faceted. He can do other things, but his strength is that he runs like a 4.5 40. He's 6'2.5", 6'3", can jump out of the gym, and that guy's gonna take tough matchups and score goals because he's gifted in that way. We also talk a lot about turning your weaknesses into strengths. Like if you want to keep growing as a player, I think you can be happy with you are, but that's probably not the type of person that I'm looking for on my team who is satisfied to be static in that way. So I encourage people to be to have that universality that you described, knowing that it's a difficult thing to achieve. So I guess long story short is, I would love to have a player. I would love to have a team of people that can do everything, but realistically, it's about finding what people are good at and putting them in a position to succeed.
Yeah. Like, it is a tough balance because obviously you don't want to put people in a box and be like, this is your role. You're only ever going to do that. And obviously the younger the player, like the earlier they are in their careers, like I get very annoyed when I see like college teams in Ireland, because it's where most people are playing, where school teams like only have 2 people handle and only have 2 people ever pick up the disc and stuff. It's like you're just crippling these other 20 players' development. Like these 2 players start picking up this aren't necessarily going to get any better as players because they're just doing the same thing over and over again. They're not actually expanding.
There's a book that I mentioned a long time ago. It's pretty good. It's called Range. And one of the things that they mention is early broadening, I guess, of skills. So don't specialize until late, basically. And I think it's crucial, probably also in a place like Ireland where there are fewer people playing, less exposure overall. I don't think it's a good idea to specialize until you later on, when you are a little bit more defined, once you've realized that this is something you want to do and you are enjoying and having fun with. And then, think about like, I know what I'm good at and I know I can contribute to this team in this way.
Yeah, I think the specialization should only come when it's like, it's at the point where it's like, I just want to win now. Like I want to win something important, not, your local league or whatever it is. But like, you've made nationals or you've made international team or something. It's like, now is the time to do your best thing as often as possible. But yeah, before then, I looked down next Epson's work in his books. Range is good. And what's his? Oh, I can't remember.
Let's see. I think that's the only...
I was confused with the talent code, which is like the opposite to Sports Gene. Sports Gene was like eye-opening to me when I was starting to coach, because I read like all these books, like talent code, which are all about like, it's all about the environment, the training, the structure that makes people great. And then Epstein had this book, the Sports Gene, which was like, here's all these examples of people that like never played a sport before, or never did like an athletic activity before, and then they just like turn around and win in like three months. It's like some people are just like freaks, genetic freaks, and it doesn't matter about the environment. So you definitely have to be able to recognize both, I think, as a coach. Be like, someone is just really, really good at something, maybe just let them do it and not worry too much about it. Nothing more frustrating than having like a gift. Always happens to receivers, in my experience. Like a really gifted receiver, they come on, they score loads of goals, defenses start like backing them a little bit, taking away, and then like they never want to score a goal deep ever again. It's like, please remember, if anyone ever gives you a step deep, like please just take it and score, and stop trying to get the disc like right beside the thrower now that you're used to doing it. Drives me nuts.
We have a player, by the way, the author is David Epstein. I think I said Daniel Epstein. And David Epstein, not the criminal, but the author. We do have a player. His name's Atkin Arnstein. He's immensely talented and also like a 4.5 40 guy. And I haven't figured out what role to give him yet. And I don't think he knows what he likes to do either. Kins, I don't know what you think about. We call him Artie, but he is that type of. He's got that game breaking speed, and generally we're like, Artie, just go score goals. But he has this inclination. He wants to stay near the disc. And so the coaches around here wrestling with what do we do to put him in the best position to succeed and to help the team. Kins, have you given him any specific advice? I just gave myself a thumbs down.
Now, it'd be interesting to see what he wants to do as well, like what he thinks his calling is as a player, because I think that is like a big factor in it, probably, because you're usually going to be best at what you love, probably what you want to be best at. Yeah, but it is hard to not like default to kind of like how you were talking about Jarv and just someone who's really good at playing close, tight defense to someone and also running fast away from the disc and letting someone throw it to you out into space. So I think, but I think it's a lot of it weighs on what the player wants as well.
Mm-hmm. I think from a team perspective as well, like it's difficult to conceptualize, like, are you going to be more impactful as a team if you have like universal players and everyone's able to do everything? You're able to play like offense and defenses where everyone can kind of like switch roles, which I think on defense anyway, I think people really underestimate the difficulty of doing that. How like you just need a certain body type. Actually, like thinking that, so rugby is really big in Ireland for the last decade or so because Ireland's got really, really good at it. So we're really competitive and everyone loves rugby now. Rugby is like a classic sport where it used to be, I can only turn professional in 1999, like globally. So it was amateur before that. In the amateur era, it was like very much like you could be, kind of short and bulky, let's say, and you have a role for your strength. You could be tall and skinny and a bit speedy, and you have a role for you. Now it's turned professional, and it's got quite universal. It's basically like you have to be a certain body type. It used to be a sport, like it was like very much you could be any body type and you find a role. And now it's, if you want to be good, you have to be between like 6'3" and 6'8", and like be able to put on muscle, like a lot of muscle, and be fast and be agile, even though you're 6'8" and whatever 23 stone. So be able to like sidestep someone. It's like, okay, there's very small part of the population that's ever going to be able to do that. So like it's a universal sport because everyone can do everything, but it's like a very elite sport in that. Yeah, it's very specialized in that only a certain body type can actually be that. And I think the same, like if you think of switching defense in the NBA, obviously everyone Ultimate's obsessed with getting switches. Like to be a switching defense in the NBA, basically everyone has to be the same size. You can't be too tall, you can't be too small, because it doesn't work then. It's like, it's the same in Ultimate.
Right.
You just kind of exclude tall people and short people. Probably short people, more than tall people. Tall people probably always be useful. But short people like me, we can't play defense in a switching system because you'll get mismatched all over the shop.
Have some thoughts on that. The basketball one's interesting too, because it can be both ways. You get the guard who gets the big man switched on him defensively and try to use his agility to get past. But if Embiid gets Steph Curry switched on to him, he's just going to post him up and dunk it. In Ultimate, so you have another talking point here that maybe we can transition to, and that is Ultimate weighted in favor of the offense too much? Talking about how switching can be difficult defensively. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's kind of generated because I was obviously not an active coach this year, so I just watched so much Frisbee. And sometimes it's really, really dull to watch a game of Ultimate. And part of that is just like the lack of a bit of tension, but a bit of lack of excitement. Because a good offense on a nice day is just under so little pressure. Like obviously out in the field, it probably feels like a lot of pressure, but from the spectator point of view, like that offense probably going to get broken like 3 or 4 times maximum, if even that.
By the way, what are you normally watching? Are you normally watching European games, or do you watch the US play very much?
I watch, all European Ultimate, a lot of US Ultimate, like maybe not a lot of the regular season tournaments. Sorry, not the early games in a regular season tournament.
Fair.
But Nationals, I'll watch pretty much all of it.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
So I think firstly, the answer to the question is Ultimate too easy, or is Ultimate weighted too much for the offense? I think for 90% Ultimate, the answer is probably no. Like, people just struggle playing offense, and if you go watch a college game in Ireland, you would not say, wow, offense is really easy. You would say, it looks really hard to throw and catch a frisbee under any sort of pressure. But when it gets to US Nationals level or European Championship level, again, assuming it's not howling wind, I just think it's just a little bit imbalanced in favour of the offense. And more the problem I had is, I think, a lot of the rule changes, and it might be different between WFDF and USAU. A lot of the rule changes over the last 10 years have also benefited the offense. It's already supported so heavily weighing for the offense, because you can't dispossess someone of the disc. The offense has to make a mistake. And if the offense is good enough to not make mistakes very often, you just have so little defensive tools to get the disc from. So when I see the travel rule get liberalized, so you're allowed to take more sets, I'm like, I loved playing quick give goals when I was a player. So I would love to play under that rule, but at the same time, I'm like, well, that's just another tool for the offense. Do the offense need more tools? I don't think the offense needs more tools. I think the defense needs more tools. So the post was kind of how could you take the hardest possible job, which is you don't want to have a separate set of rules for championship level. You want everyone to play by the same rules for whatever reason, which other sports split have harder rules for more competitive level. So it's not it's unthinkable. It was if you could do that, could you think of rules that could benefit the defense at the elite level without overpowering the defense at a lower level? Which I think there was a few there, but I guess, what do you guys think? Offense looks pretty easy to you. Surely you feel it's overpowered.
Yeah. No, I think, and it's also funny because, like you're saying with WFDF, I do, one of the first things that comes to mind is especially with, it being self-officiated, and it just feels like a lot of offensive players are pretty entitled about what they deserve, and that kind of stuff, and the space that they should be awarded, and this kind of thing, which I think this conversation makes me think of the difference between club ultimate and the UFA, which would be their professional one, because there's a knee-jerk reaction to be well, offense in the UFA is easier because the field is bigger and therefore it's easier. But the thing that's not taken into consideration there is refs are calling fouls, not players, so you can be way more physical in all aspects of the game, downfield, on the mark, all sorts of different things. And two, they have the new pulling rules in the UFA where the team is pulling closer, and therefore, it's harder for the offense to get started. And that is what we talked about. Once you're in motion, it can be pretty easy sometimes, but to find that motion from a more stagnant position is pretty difficult. So I do think, especially in club, you can see a lot of it be. I agree that on a calm day, it can be a little one-sided towards the offense, especially when anytime if you're marking relatively close and there's a little bit of contact, it's going to be called a foul on the mark. If we're both going for the disc and there's some contact, the offensive player probably going to call a foul if you jump into me, or if we're running, in WFDF, you get the thing now where, there's the dangerous play call that I think is being more prevalent in a lot of these formats. And therefore, if we're just running to the same space, that's my space as the offense. And I should be the one that gets there. So I think some of those things probably do make it a little one-sided to the offense, where I wouldn't mind a more physical version of the game, which you get in the UFA, which I think is in some ways is sometimes it's frustrating depending on, who's officiating and whatnot. But I do like a little bit more physicality in the game and potentially like letting a few more things go, because I agree. Like it can be really hard as the defense when an offense is flowing, and just when you get the mindset as an offense of like, we're not going to give you the ball, we're going to take these easy shots and just keep it moving. Like, God, it gets like, sometimes it just feels like it's impossible for the defense because there's just so much you'd have to take away. And if the throwers are playing to their strengths and the cutters are cutting well, like I do think it's a little one-sided to the offense sometimes.
Ian, you're, whether you like it or not, you're going to become a Bravo coach collaborator, because I'm going to put you in touch with TK. I actually sent him this.
You do recruitment, you invite people onto your podcast and just tell them publicly.
That's worked so
they can't turn it down.
You can't back out. This is obviously a very interesting topic to him because he's our defensive coach. I often sing his praises. I think he's too humble. Actually, I think he is, he's the best or one of the three best defensive minds on the planet right now in the sport. And so from that standpoint, he doesn't think that it's too in favor of offense. He even though I'm sure he would love to have some more advantages defensively, I think generally it's a little bit about the mindset. So what is it that you're trying to accomplish defensively? Like, is the goal to get a block every point? Is the goal to get stops every point? Or can you reframe it? And are you consistently putting pressure in certain parts of an offense? Or are you consistently getting them to attack or funneling them into spaces that you find advantageous for your defense? He would probably also throw out the statistic that I think at Nationals we almost had 5 breaks a game. And that's in large part to his design and how he thinks about defense and leveraging space. I'm also kind of reminded about, I've been playing a lot of euchre lately. Do either of you know what that game is? It's a card game. Anyway, it doesn't really matter because it applies to all games. What I find is people who are learning or have a less advanced understanding of a game, they'll focus too much on the immediate next play and not like the overall, like, what are you actually trying to do? Like, what's a good, for instance, in cards, like they'll be wrestling, like, do I play the king of clubs or 10 of clubs here? When truly it doesn't matter, because you're not necessarily trying to win a certain trick or a certain round of cards. Like you're trying to win the overall game. So let's stop wasting mental energy on this and focus more on the bigger picture. That analogy would probably make a little bit more sense if we all had an intimate understanding of euchre and
I got
different
you.
card games. But from that standpoint, I think generally in all sports, the offense is favored. And there are not enough creative defensive thinkers in most sports, and especially one as young or that's lacked as much development like Ultimate Frisbee.
Yeah. I was really nervous writing this article, actually. And I said I was bored out of frustration, was watching a lot of Ultimate and being like, kind of actually against your point, being like, sometimes just seeing like these great defensive plays just taken away, really frustrating to be like, nothing's happened in this game for 6 points. This has been holds. Someone's made an amazing play. Just a tiny bit of contact. It's going back. It's not a block. This is terrible. Or like, even worse, it's a 3-minute discussion about it. Or the Euro Open final this year was like one of the worst games for like there was a TV screen just at the side of the pitch, and like the teams just constantly went over to refer to it because you're allowed to do that under WFDF rules, and it's just like game was awful mostly because of that, even though there wasn't actually many goals, they just went on forever. But anyway, I was never sort of writing it because I was like, people are just going to think that like I can't coach defenses. Like, no, I love the challenge of coaching defenses, and I sort of agree that like there aren't that many creative thinkers. I guess the challenge for me is like a spectator in terms of like the watchability of games. Like, I know I can be coaching a great defensive game, but like not much action is happening. And unfortunately, like I say, even the best defenses get a lot of their blocks not as actual plays, but by forcing the offense into like just throwing the disc away or like making a mistake. Which isn't that exciting.
As a spectator.
Like, as a spectator, yeah, just from a spectator point of view, like isn't necessarily that exciting. Like when you're in the game, it's obviously the greatest thing in the world to see the disc hit the floor because someone like flubbed the forehand or whatever. It's a great moment. But sitting at home watching it, it's just like, oh, that person's threw this into the ground. Great. So yeah, what I was trying to do with the defense rules is like, can we balance it to try and encourage more defensive playmaking, like individual moments that are exciting. But yeah, like overall defensive schemes and stuff, I just think it's so easy to sit down and think of how to like coordinate 7 people to play a scheme that could like overpower offenses, and it's so hard to get 7 people to do it.
Yeah,
it's so difficult. People, the point is brought up like, oh, no one knows me. I thought of these things. It's like, I'd say every single coach has thought of these things, but it's so hard. Like, because as well, it's one of the points in the areas, because offense is so important, because you can win a game basically by holding and just like getting the other team to make 2 or 3 mistakes, and that can win you the game. It's like you actually have to spend so much time training your offense. It's like it would be a huge risk to say we are going to become like defensive specialists. We're going to spend like 80% of our training time on defense and 20% on offense. Like, you can go out and get 7 breaks a game and lose.
That's bravo.
Because you can't hold.
we get no attention.
We certainly weight defense heavier than other teams.
Well, you won a national championship, so obviously Brute Squad obviously the same in the women's division, and they've had a huge track record of success. So it's not saying it's a possible thing, but yeah, I just think it's so much easier to conceptualize these things and actually get people to do them, because I think advanced defense is so much harder than advanced offense, because if you have an offensive breakdown, you just get to stand there for 6 seconds while everyone regroups and reorganizes and communicates. You have a breakdown in defense, the other team scores.
Right.
Like, there's no forgiveness. There's so much forgiveness for the offense. There's none for defense. Poor defense.
Yeah. With that in mind, one thing about TK that he would definitely agree with is it did take years to get buy-in for him, and certain buy-in from certain people to get everyone else to buy in as well. How about, what would some rule changes be? What do you think? What would be exciting to make it, to put more pressure on the offense to potentially make?
Well, I do like the rule, the UFA rule, like the shorter pulling. I think that's really helpful. Like, that would just immediately help the defense if you're able to always pin the offense in their end zone and like have that shorter sprint, so you're actually able to like reliably get up and put pressure on, like just making the offense go 15-20 yards further every single point with less space to work with. This immediately is going to increase the scope for the defense. Aligned with that pulling rule, I'm a big fan of the suggestion, like, if you roll the pull out the back, you don't get to bring it up from the front. You have to take from the back. And like, I think shorter pulling plus that means like defense is suddenly like, you can put so much pressure on. I think that alone would just...
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think you could just, that's something you could easily do just for high level play. Like you could just be like, yeah, just like here's the pulling line for nationals. It's up there, and like it's any different for to interrupt the flow of the game any other way. So it's kind of like the perfect way to rejig the balance a bit more towards the defense.
Which is funny because then they're like, why is the Nationals line shorter? Because like then all the amateurs have to like throw it farther for their pull, and they're like, what the heck is going on? But it does make sense when you think about it this way. And I agree. Like I don't really fully understand like why the defense has to touch it if it goes out the back, like if and out the side of the end zone. Like it just seems to not really reward like a good pull.
Great skill.
Like it doesn't totally make sense. Like if it lands out of the field of play, I understand bringing it to the middle. But if it rolls out on the sideline, you take it out on the sideline. So why, if it rolls out then in the end zone, would you not take it at that point on the field? I don't know what like the total justification of that was when they made it, but I think that'd be a really exciting rule. And then it just makes pulling more important and more of a skill, which it already is. But you could just be could be so much more lethal as a puller. I think that would be a really fun rule. Is that how it is in the UFA now? That I think if it
rolls at the back,
you just take it
to the back.
Right. So it's like they UFA,
they've got
they're innovating.
The shorter stall, like, do you notice does it feel like a shorter stall in UFA,
no,
or is it because it's actually
doesn't.
7 seconds?
Yeah,
I think I know like 5 seconds is enough.
And the other thing is like maybe I think it depends who you ask, but like I really am not trying to hold the disc for 7 seconds in a club ultimate game. So like something went wrong if I have the disc at stall 8, 9, or 10 in a club ultimate game. So therefore, like it doesn't affect me that much because I'm trying to move the disc within 0 to 5 seconds, regardless of what the stall is. So I don't think about it too much. And I think because it's like so unbiased from a ref that it really doesn't feel too much different.
Because I think shortening the stall again is probably my second favorite rule, and I think it's actually one that could be universal because like turnovers on low level aren't because
they're getting stalled out.
You don't have enough time. There's because you can't throw and catch or get free. So I think like lowering the stall end isn't really going to cause a lot of turnovers at that level, but at the elite level, if you only had 5 seconds, you're going to have to take on some risky options.
I like that one.
But then we have to put up with so much stall 6, 7, 8, and then you're just stalled out. Like I hate that. That's the worst. So you're going to have to deal with so many more players doing the fast couple seconds at the end.
More stall discussions is not going to be good for entertainment purposes for sure.
Right.
Oh God. Yeah. That's the interest. I mean, the stall it's such a unique part of our sport, the stall being counted by the opposition, like right there in front of it. It's such an interesting facet of how we play, like that it's being counted by the defender right in front of you. It's so unique. Like it is really fun, but it can be very annoying.
Other option is like, here's a shot clock. Obviously just borrowing from basketball, but I'm also like then
that one's interesting.
What defenses just play like super passive, like we're just going to try and count you out rather than try and actually stop you scoring, which is not really going to improve the watchability. Like, it'd be hard to get that balance right.
Yeah. That's
what we called it for 30 seconds, just waiting for one to see me get free.
I think in in the UFA setting, a shot clock makes more sense because there's a clock in the game, and so they've run into the thing of like a couple people like the umpire, just wasting time, and therefore like in that sense it makes more sense. But I think in club, I mean, it would just be a whole other thing to be tracked to, which would be so hard. I think it would make more sense in the UFA though, and I think it would make those timed games really exciting because, it just adds a whole nother layer that teams have to be mindful of.
There's different ways to implement a shot clock. Potentially, a shot clock to get past midfield or something. I forget what the UFA has experimented with in all-star games, and I think there was one where if you crossed midfield, you can go backwards.
Oh, interesting.
I forget what the reception was on that. Do you remember?
I don't remember. I like that too. I think both of those are kind of aimed at stopping the same thing in the UFA. Of
Ruin your new offense though. No backward passes.
Yeah. No. I don't want to go backwards that more. If the guy in the back is getting poached, he's attacking forward. He's sprinting forward. He's the first look if he's getting poached. So no, we're not going backwards. We're moving forward. Forward. We're going progress 24/7. No, it'll be out soon. Don't worry. There'll be film of it. You'll be breaking it down because you'll be Bravo remote coaching. So we'll obviously be getting
throw this in the bin. This is terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Go back to a vertical stack. Cuts from the back, guys.
God damn it. God, you're making Quinn so happy if Quinn is here. You're like, yes. Isolation cutting. One step and go. That's
all right, we just hit the 2-hour mark. There's a couple bullet points I want to hit here before we let you go. But are there any of these that interest you greatly that you sent over to us?
I can't remember what I sent over to you, so I'm happy to listen.
One of the things that I wanted to finish with was just you have like your Europe's top 25 players list out. Maybe some potential. I think for a lot of our American listeners that maybe are less familiar with the scene over there in Europe, just some players and mostly players to watch out for that are good. There's going to be a big Worlds tournament coming up that hasn't happened since 2016. So maybe just like some names that you think, could have a big impact in that.
And if I could prime it a little bit too, I think this was Ulti World voting that you participated in.
Yeah.
And one very noticeable result of this list is there's a lot of young European players on the list. So yeah, what's happening with the rising stars in Europe and
well, unfortunately, it's not really happening in Ireland. I'm sad to say, but the youth scenes in Belgium, France, Italy in particular are insane. I think France in particular, Belgium's getting all the headlines right now, but France I think it opens like on the PE curriculum from a young age. There now they're getting tons of people coming through. They're dominating all the European Junior Championships. Obviously Belgium you know about because they're on 24. The open team got to the final on 24s. France didn't enter, somewhat controversially. Didn't enter on 24s, otherwise they could have been maybe knocking on the door of a medal there as well. That Italy have had a great youth scene for a number of years. They've done really well. 24s. It's like those three countries. I should probably mention Germany as well because like the top 3 female matching players in those were listed all German. So I should maybe give some credit to the Germans as well. But in terms of names, like Dan de Marais, I think everyone probably has heard of this age that could start the Belgium under 24 team. Anyone's listening, he's looking for some financial help to get to the World Championships and to play in the US, but not for Bravo. So maybe you don't want to help him financially go over and play for a rival. But he's looking for help, and he's the best player in Europe at the moment. It'd be great to see him competing in the US national stage as well. It's hard to know if he's actually going to Worlds actually because it's so expensive this year. David Barzazzi from Italy is great. He played with U24s as well with Italy this year. He's unbelievable athlete, unbelievable thrower. Seems like the most casual human being you've ever seen when he's out on the pitch. Doesn't look like he's going to do anything, and then he just comes out with the most outrageous athletic play or the most outrageous throw. I'm a huge fan of him. On the female matching side, like everyone knows Levka in the US now, obviously.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Levka wasn't number 1 on this list.
Yeah, I think she was number 2 on mine, and it's like a hard one to judge. Like I complain about this a lot in Europe. Like US teams are much better. Like US nationals is the crown jewel, but like Europe, like players kind of dip in and out. Like we had our European nationals this year, European international championships this year, European club, European beach, European indoors. People go to the US to play. So it's like it's very hard to get all the best players in one place at one time. and to really see them go head to head. Bevka played for Germany mixed this year at Euros. They didn't do great. I think she was a little bit injured, possibly. So she wasn't at top form. I think people got the better of her at some of those matchups. So I mean, that was definitely in my head when I was trying to vote. Like, how much do I weigh her US Nationals performance, which is insane, versus like what I actually watched in Europe, which was like less impressive. So it's tough to make that list. So, like, Anna Gerner is number one. If you watched Germany at World Games in 2022, she was like, her and Nico Muller are the star of the O-line, just like driving everything behind the spot. Anna Gerner is absolutely incredible. So I think Germany women are going to be pretty strong at Worlds this year. Italy gone all in on mixed. So Barzazzi and Irene Scazzieri played for Fury this year. Them and all the rest of the Italy stars are on their mixed team, so they're obviously thinking about making a run at a medal there. Interesting then if Belgium Open actually managed to get to Australia, which is they're looking for financial help as well, because they're a very young team, as you said, so they're really struggling with the finances of getting to Australia. But I think if they can get there with their full team, they can be competitive. I think that's a pretty slim chance at the moment, unfortunately.
It's going to be interesting having not had that tournament in so long, what the landscape internationally looks like. I think it's going to be a really exciting.
We were kind of robbed in 2020. I know worse things happened in 2020 than not getting to go to Worlds, but that was probably, for Ireland, that was probably our biggest chance ever of competing.
I know. I was pretty bummed about that as well.
Where was it, in Ireland that year?
Yes, it was.
No, it was in Netherlands. Un-24s was going to be in Ireland.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. U-24s was going to be in Ireland. And so.
We got Masters instead. Not quite the same atmosphere.
I did go to Dublin, or I guess Limerick. Flew into Dublin for Masters, and
you probably got COVID as well.
Oh yeah,
that's where I got COVID for the first time.
I was patient zero for my team. I think I got it before I even landed. I was feeling crummy as soon as I got there, and attributed to jet lag. And then the next thing we knew, we were in semifinals, and half of our starting lineup was out with COVID, so we lost to Boneyard again.
Yeah, because it was COVID's fault, though.
Yeah.
So we're saying that Desmarais wants to play in America, but not for Bravo?
He's got a team lined up, I believe, but I guess if finance are the issue, he could probably change his mind.
He's got a team lined up. Ian Bomb, what team is it?
Can you drop a little bomb for us?
I believe it's Machine. I'm kind of hesitant to say that. I need to check Instagram.
Why? I mean, actually, it makes sense because Machine's already all travel players, so like, why not?
They have the foreign hookups now,
dude. I'm gonna steal him.
Like to the top 25 list, you just go through the list and say, "Hey, you want to come over and play?"
I want number one. I want number one though. Got to start at the top. You think I can swindle him over in free agency as like a contract signed, or maybe I can
give him a 10-day?
I mean, and like Chicago, like come on.
Something tells me Joe is very good. Joe White is very good at the international recruiting.
He played in Europe for a season with Isno, so yeah, he has the connections. Yeah. You need to get over here and start. This is how professional sports really start. Like when you start getting in the towns all over.
Truly.
Can't believe it, man. Cannot believe it. Ian Bomb. What an Ian Bomb, man. That's crazy.
Have you heard of more countries focusing on mixed to try to medal?
No, Italy's the only one. I think everyone else is pretty much going traditional open women's. If they're going at all. I think there's only like 7 European countries attending in any capacity at the moment, which is not great.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. It is just so far. I mean, even like, it's an interesting, because it's something you look forward to and it's so exciting. And then you also look at the finances of it all, and it's depressing. You kind of have to weigh it out. I mean, like it is a lot. Like it's going to be upwards of like $6,000-$7,000 when it's all said and done. And like, that's a lot of money to play some Ultimate. And like, obviously it's such a, like, I think the biggest thing is just like a reason to go to Australia and like have that experience would be probably life changing, but it's also like a very big expense. So, you know,
At least the US are probably getting medals out of it as well. So you can say you represented your national team and won a European or won a World Championship. It's softest to blow. You probably pay the 5,000 or 6,000 for the medal.
I think the World Championship is so funny though, because I think it's probably I mean, like, I just love, I don't know, people like to, like in the US when they say like there's probably, I don't know, it's interesting, just like the people that say they've won a World Championship. But I think there's an argument to be, it's probably been for a while, like it's harder to make the team than it is to win the tournament for the Americans. So I always think it's kind of funny, like when you see people say like world champion on the US team, and it's like kind of just was cooler that you made the team, I guess is kind of how I think about it. But you still got to get the job done, I guess.
Stanley Peterson never wanted to try out for one of the national teams after U24s because he didn't want to spend the money to have a bunch of 15-2 games and then maybe a semi-competitive game in semis and finals. And, you know, back then, I think the gap has closed a little bit between the U.S. and other countries, but back then it was a little more clear-cut.
And Stan also doesn't play Ultimate anymore, so there's that. Clearly, he didn't really
the love.
He wasn't
the cool anymore,
yeah. He wasn't really that into it to begin with, potentially. So there's that context for sure.
Yeah, maybe like final question from us, unless Kins has anything else. But what is? Can you talk about the growth of European Ultimate versus the U.S. and what you hope to see, and if you like what it's like watching European players come over here to compete?
Yeah, well, to take the second question first, it's so exciting to see players come over and do well and like actually be key pieces for the teams they're playing. Obviously, financially, it's so difficult to do. Any player that gets the chance, I think, should do it. It's probably a once in a lifetime thing until maybe US teams grow a bit bigger and actually have money behind them and just fly you over or whatever. But yeah, it's cool to see European players come over and compete and like be competitive. It's always something that I believed that they were. Like obviously Europe building up and you're close to the depth of the US, but I always thought the top players in Europe are going to be competitive at the top level of the US as well. With the growth of Europe, like I mentioned, some countries that really got their act together and are going to be big forces in the future, like France, Italy, Germany, Belgium, in particular. I think Europe struggles with the growing pains of having like a small community, but a community that's really competitive and has lots of like competitive distractions. It's like all the resources get pushed into kind of just making the competitions that already exist better or creating new competitions for some reason. Like more European championships, people to play, and so I would really like to see more of our communities, including in Ireland, like focus on building Ultimate from the grassroots. Because like it's not rocket science. We all know, like you look at any sport, like how does a sport grow? It's not by getting your sport on TV and having everyone be so impressed that they immediately turn around and start playing it. It's by getting kids playing. And then the kids want to watch it on TV, so it gets on TV.
Yeah, even in the US, even though Ultimate is so much bigger here than other countries, we have to focus on the same exact thing if we want it to grow.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of people that are just content with Ultimate kind of the way it is and kind of it's happy to play these tournaments and have fun and then forget about it. So it's a bit of a chicken egg thing. Like we need the resources to be able to like pay people to go and do coaching and spread the word of Ultimate and set up in schools, but without a bigger player base, you can't get the resources. So I'm not really sure how you start that loop. Obviously, like I said, countries like France and Italy have done it. I think we could all learn, for example, but I think if everyone else in Europe gets their act together, love to see like a US versus Europe, like Ryder Cup sort of situation.
Mm-hmm.
The best in Europe versus the best in the US. I think
That'd be fun.
just on the verge of that being like a real, like a best of 5 games or something. Like, yeah, it'd be competitive. That'd be fun. That'd be a challenge for the US, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to see that game today, even for sure.
That'd be great. That'd be super exciting.
Yeah, it's good. Also, you're able to pay for the top 25 players from their US list and the European list to slide in somewhere in between and get the game going. Stream it. I'm sure you'll make the money back in subscriptions.
Oh man,
from flying
we should have
100 players somewhere to play a game Ultimate.
We should have suggested that to Charlie last week when we had him on. What about I think the first part of the question is what does it take? Well, other than grassroots, like what has been the biggest spark of European Ultimate growth?
Well, I think it is like the grassroots in certain countries that have invested in it, and then for countries like Ireland that haven't invested in the same way but have become really competitive and like have players now going to the US, like Sam Murphy and Ferdy Rogers going over to play for US teams, like Sarah Melvin was European Player of the Year in 2019. They played 2 Eurostar tours in the US and did really well on those. So, like, we're able to produce those players in our community, and I think like a lot of that has come from the amount of ultimate information and stuff there is now. So like you can watch the best teams, you can watch the best players, you can access like what they did, how they practiced, what they're doing, and you can try and replicate it at home, even if it's like you don't have the same depth of player base or the same environment.
Just,
you still know what you should be doing.
Information more readily
the information
available.
is available there.
Charlie, MVP of the world, I guess, not just the US. Although I know there are plenty of people spreading content about Ultimate. Kins, you have anything? Or I have one silly question here from Quinn.
Yeah, let's end with Quinn's silly question.
Let's see. Help me if I get this wrong, Kins.
No, I think don't overthink it. You got 5 fingers.
I'm
Is
very
it
nervous
5
for
or
this.
3?
5 fingers. 1 hand.
You can have a liquid coming out of each finger. What liquids do you choose?
What licks to choose coming eat? Wait, what am I doing with the liquids? What's coming out of my finger? How are they coming out? Like shooting it, or just like?
Yeah, you can shoot a liquid out of all of your fingers, and you can get 5 different liquids. Which liquids would you choose?
Coffee.
Before water, just straight into coffee.
Oh yeah, I don't drink water.
By your reaction, I was like, "Oh, he's gonna say water immediately." No, coffee.
No brainer. Coffee. Milk for my coffee. That's all I need, really.
We gotta throw water in there, like it's such a survival.
I can get water anywhere.
I guess there's water and milk and stuff a little bit.
There's water everywhere. Like, am I only able to get liquids from my fingers?
Yeah, 5.
Okay, I'll have water then. I told you. So those just for convenience purposes. Coffee, milk, water, Coca-Cola. No other substitute. Only Coca-Cola. 5th one. I'm going to. I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say Guinness. I shouldn't say it. As an Irish person representing on the US podcast, I shouldn't say Guinness, so I'm going to say Guinness.
I think we would have been disappointed if you didn't.
We love
I really wanted to not say it, but I couldn't think of it.
I think it's a great one.
The only
You'd be the life of the party.
The only other acceptable answer would have been Scotch, I guess, or whiskey.
Yeah, I'm not into spirits. The young man's game or the old man's game. I'm in the
well, that was awesome, dude. Thank you so much for staying up and late into your night over there and coming on and giving all our listeners an entertaining podcast. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you asking.
We haven't had enough world perspective, so yeah, thanks for being on.
And shout out Smurf for the recommendation and getting you on. So, and I do hope that there is some international event. Maybe we get in Ireland or in the United States if you make the trip, and hopefully meet face to face one day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully we host Worlds and you make the team.
I would hopefully.
Good luck, Atkins. But yeah, truly, if Bravo may not have a international player this year, but it sounds like we found our international coach. So welcome to the squad.
I'm honored. I always felt the Bravo had the connection since 2022.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
If I had a US team, if I had to support one team or join one team, it would be Bravo.
Love to hear it. All right, Ian. Thanks so much. Peace
Thank you.
out.